thank you, Salim, for covering the blind prediction contest. So we're going to step into some uncharted waters here. All right. I know it's after 5, jokes fall flat, right? But do a blind prediction contest for wave loading on a steel frame structure. Okay, so Salim very well went over the previous blind prediction contests. I don't need to reiterate those, but Pier has a long history of these types of contests. But also in 2014, Pier held a tsunami modeling workshop at OSU, not as a blind prediction, but as just, here's some data from some experiments, how well can we use current methods to predict wave loading on a bridge deck. And this is from tests conducted in Japan at PWRI, and was part of Pier's tsunami research program. Okay, so all the participants are there, a lot of familiar faces, might be kind of hard to see. Yeah. Okay, so the experiments were like a tsunami wave dam break onto a 1 to 20 scale model of a bridge deck. Again, might be a little hard to see, but that's from the experiments there with wave loading, coming down a flume, and hitting a bridge deck. Okay, but the bridge deck was essentially a rigid obstacle. Okay, so it was all CFD. We asked people to determine the response histories of total horizontal and total vertical loads acting on the bridge deck. Okay, and again, maybe a little hard to see, but the blue lines are on the left are the time histories of total horizontal force from the experiment, and on the right is the total vertical force from the experiment, also in blue. All the other lines were the predictions. All right. And there were various softwares used. I know you can't read that. I can barely read it on this screen. But from what I remember, there's LS Dyna, OpenFoam, a couple of entries with OpenFoam, Star CCM, OpenSeas was also used with the particle finite element method, and a couple other softwares that I forget and I can't read on the screen there. Okay, but Salim went over some of the takeaways from previous blind prediction contests, but some of the takeaways from this workshop were that, although this was basically a 2D flow, or 1D flow, 2D model, however you want to define, all right, but 3D simulations are generally worth the additional effort for these types of wave loading problems. Even though they seem to be inherently 2D, there's some localized flow and turbulence and, that 3D can capture. And then a turbulence model, or any turbulence model, was important for breaking waves and high-speed, steady flows. And just like everything else, right, initial conditions, boundary conditions of the gate release or the wave generation were very important. Right? That's like every simulation, right? It's the initial and boundary conditions, right? Even statics, right? Okay, so fast forward, well, actually 1 year later, some steel frame experiments were conducted at OSU in the large wave flume, which Pedro Lomanoco will talk about tomorrow morning. All right, you'll get more information, so I won't describe that today. But these are tests conducted by Dan Borello, who was at OSU at the time. He's since left OSU, doing pretty well. But he and Nick Wersheim conducted these tests with Pedro in the large wave flume. But it was a flexible steel frame model, and the objectives were to measure the dynamic properties of flexible inundated structures, and also measured the forced response of flexible structures to various wave conditions. Okay, and this will form the basis for the blind prediction contest that I'm proposing here. All right, and I don't have all the details worked out, so it's a little bit like when I teach structural design, the blind leading the blind, but also the blind kind of telling you what the blind prediction is going to be. So, but I'll get the details worked out. But anyway, again, maybe kind of hard to see, but imagine this podium. It's about 4 feet tall, right? Maybe a little over 15 inches wide, right? But let's see. This pointer no. Anyway, okay, so right. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to blame this on the Mac, not on me, not user error, right? But anyway, this little thing right here, imagine it's about the size of this podium. It's a 4-foot tall steel plate structure, right? Which in, oblique to the wave, right, is just the big steel plate right here, okay? Another steel plate back here, 4 feet tall, 15 inches wide. And then on side view, right, there's 2 stories, or there's a floor and a roof, right? Okay, sorry. Okay, so there's pressure gauges all along the front here, all right, which you can see in this kind of blue. There's 14 pressure gauges, right? And then from the side, there's accelerometers here to measure the dynamic response of each floor, okay? And I believe there's some added mass, but it's not a big deal for this discussion. Okay, so the profile of the large wave flume at OSU is shown here. This little thing right here, right, that's the frame. Everything else is fluid and beach, all right? Okay, so what was done prior to ramming waves at this structure, right, was free vibration tests, right? And we're going to give this data to the contestants so you can calibrate your models, just like Salim was mentioning with the previous blind prediction contest. Okay, so don't be trying to snap pictures of the time history to get a leg up in the competition, right? We're going to give you this data. Okay, but basically it's a plug test, all right? Again, statics problem, right? That becomes a dynamics problem, but a pulley, right here, and then a pin, and classic Hibbler, right? Okay, so but basically, pull on the frame. Sorry. Okay, pull on the frame, get the frame to displace 1.5 inches, right, and then cut, and then let the thing vibrate, right? Okay, so we did that with, all right, not we, maybe that's not even royal we. I wasn't even involved in this until recently, right? But Dan and Nick and Pedro and students, right? They, I guess, they measured or did this for different inundated or standing water levels. So 0 water, free vibration, that's easy, that's dynamics, right? And then for different water levels, above, standing above, or within the frame, right? I forget the exact, but yeah, 26 inches, which covers, the second floor, right? It's 24 inches up to there, sorry, okay? But, about 7 different water levels measure the free vibration response. And you can see here in the upper right, that the black line is no water, the red line is 26 inches of water, just above the second floor, okay? So you can definitely see there's damping, right? There's definitely some effect of the inundated water, right? Okay, and then down here is frequency response to measure the damping, or the frequencies, sorry. But you can see the higher mode, moves things to the left, right? Anyway. Okay, and then solitary waves were the next thing, and this is also data that we plan to give, right? But you can see, here's some snapshots kind of from the other side of the flume. You gotta kind of jump to the other side, but this is looking at the frame, the wave approaching, right? Impact, right? And you can definitely see that there's some 3D effects going on, right? So although you could model this in 2D, I think to get a good prediction, you need 3D. But again, here's the displacement response of the top plate and the middle plate, the roof and the second floor, so to speak, all right? But it's very nice, impact loading, damped, free vibration, right? Here's the pressures at the 14 locations, right? Measured. Okay, so we're going to give this data again. No need to furiously, take pictures, right? Okay, but yeah. So that's the open prediction phase that we're planning. So to calibrate the numerical models, we'll post this data probably on Design Safe or somewhere that's DOI-able, right? But free vibration for 7 different water levels, all right? Solitary wave for 7 combinations of inundation depth and predicted wave height, okay? And then for the closed or the blind prediction, right, submissions should predict the responses for regular waves. All right, so this is where they just started running regular waves every 1.5 seconds, 1.6 seconds, I believe, at the frame, right, and then just measuring the response as keep impact, like a storm wave, right? It's just periodically just plucking the frame, right? And then also random waves, so waves that are spaced out randomly in time, okay? So, if you can do one wave from open prediction, all right, the question is how well can the impacts of subsequent waves be predicted, okay? And these regular waves and random waves ran long enough for waves to come back and reflect off the back of the flume and hit the frame the other way. So I don't think this is going to be easy, to be honest, but I would love to see what people are able to do, okay? As would Pierre and everybody else in the room. So, and I don't think there's a lot of softwares that you can use to do these types of problems with flexible structures. Definitely, OpenFoam or FoamECs, OpenSeas, which has PFEM and flexible structures, as well as LS-DYNA, Abacus. Any of those should be able to simulate this type of experiment. Okay. Okay. So, of course, details remain. All right, but tentatively, right. And I'll work with Salim and Pierre to kind of iron out the details and the dates, but the end of this year we hope to have contest website open and data available for the open prediction through a referenceable DOI. Okay. Summer next year-ish, right? Submissions will be due September or later. By the next annual meeting, which I believe will be January of 2025, all right, the winners will be announced. Okay, and I'm just kind of throwing stuff out here, but we want to look at how well submissions can predict, right, the free vibration and the solitary waves. Right? Let's say that's 25% of the score. I don't know. This is all subject to change, like a syllabus, right? And then closed prediction, maybe 50%, and then the details, clarity, reproducibility of a report, right, would be another 25%. All right, so there's some kind of transparency in what you did and how well you can explain it. Okay, but it's all subject to change. But yeah, so that's it. We're a little, of course, over time. But if you have questions, find me out in the reception which is next. The poster session will be in the lobby where you came in. We were going to do it outside, but it was a little windy and a little noisy out there. All right. So the poster session will be in the lobby, as well as the reception. All right. There will be some foods and soft drinks, lemonade, iced tea type stuff. Also, Caltrans has a information booth on careers out in the poster session area. Okay, so if you're interested in careers with Caltrans or opportunities, please find the OES or Caltrans booth, which is right out there by the registration desk. Okay.